Hi, and welcome to this short video going over the parts of the Human Design Bodygraph. This video is not designed to be in-depth. It's just to give you an overview and some vocabulary that will be useful for you in understanding your child's chart each week as we go through the transits. There's just certain vocabulary that is familiar in the human design space. And if you're new to this way of parenting, it will be vital and helpful for you to understand this information. With that being said, let's move on. As you can see here, this is the Human Design Body Graph. In fact, this is my Human Design Body Graph. It looks like a circuit board. Everything is going towards the throat. And this is typically what you'll see if you go to our website, moonenergetics.com, and you put in birth information. This is what the chart will look like when it comes out to you. If you go to any other human design program where you can get a human design chart, it will look very similar. The styles may be a little different, but the information on it will still be the same. First, when you're looking at the body graph, on the left-hand side, you will have what says design, and it will have a list of numbers that correspond with different gates in your body graph, and then you'll have the glyphs for the different planets. And so this is where the planets were in the sky approximately 3 months before your birth or your child's birth. It said this is when the soul entered the womb, and these are the characteristics that were brought in from past lives and ancestral things. This is typically characteristics that you see in your child before your child notices it in them. If you look at your chart, it's likely things that you didn't notice until you got over 30 after your Saturn return. This is what our subconscious, we consider the subconscious. And so these characteristics may not be as noticeable externally until later in life. They become more prominent as you age. Next, on your other side here, they have the personality side. This is where the planetary alignments were at the date, time, and location of your birth. And these are what is most dominant and most externally expressed in your child. These are probably things that you see in them, they notice in themselves. These are just how they show up, particularly the personality, sun, and earth. It's going to be the most dominant energy for them and for yourself as well. And this is just where the planets were at the time of your birth. Next, we have energy centers. We're made up of 9 energy centers. We're actually in a mutation right now, but for now, we are 9 centered beings. In your chart, you'll notice different colors and whiteness. The white areas is what we call undefined or open. This is where you're absorbing and taking in the world around you. These also can be called your wisdom centers, because as you become more familiar with your own energy, this is where you learn to navigate the energy outside of yourself. This is also where they say that you get the most conditioning. A lot of the clients that I work with, this is the centers. These are the centers that we work on the most, because this is where they live in the not self the most. This is where they feel the most uncomfortable, because this is not their consistent energy, and they're taking in others' things. Next, where you have color, is called definition or defined center. This is where you have consistent access to this energy. This is where your child has consistent access to energy. Everyone is different. You may have a child that has a lot of openness. You may have a child that has a lot of definition. But where they have definition is where their strengths are, where they have consistent energy, and where they can learn where their energy can really be felt. Like, what is them? What is not other people? What is them? Now, as we move forward, we're going to go through each of these centers and their names. Start at the bottom. This is your root center, and this is a pressure center. It acts like a pulsing sensation. This is where your ambition and drive is held, where your child has ambition and drive. If your child has an open center, I have found that they have a hard time with time. And if you have a defined center like myself, you're probably hyper aware of the time. My child has an open root center, and I have to be very patient and understand that the pressure of time is not as important for him as it is for me. If your child has defined, this is probably where they want to start and do things all the time. They want to start this and they want to start that, and it's truly a pressure to start something. Next, we move to the sacral center. This is the most powerful motor center in your chart. If you have a defined, meaning you have color there, that would make you either a generator or a manifesting generator. Reflectors, projectors, and manifestors will not have this sacral energy. That is just not how they're designed to operate. But this is where your life force energy is held. And an easy way to tell if your child or you are a generator or manifesting generator. Next, we move over to the splenic center. This is one of the 3 awareness centers. This is where your primal instincts for survival are held. If you have it defined or your child has it defined, they probably feel very safe in their body. This is the energy of taking past experiences and understanding in current situations if something is safe or not. This is where fight-flight response is held. This is also where your happy hormone is held. So if you have it open, your child may not feel safe. You may notice they come off a little bit more clingy or needy. It's not that they are clingy or needy. They just are not. They're still learning what that feels like. They also don't typically have natural fears. So helping them to understand what is their fear and what someone else's fear is really, really helpful. But that is where the instinct and that internal knowing comes from, that center. Next is the solar plexus. The solar plexus is a motor center and an awareness center. And if your child has this defined in their chart or you have it defined in your chart, this means you are an emotional authority, which means you have an emotional wave that's consistent with you, and you must write out that wave before you make decisions because you'll have highs and lows. Now, depending on which channel is activated in your chart or channels will determine what that feels like for you and how big of spikes and lows you may have. But this is an awareness center, meaning like understanding the emotions, understanding that that's how they're operating. A lot of people that have defined solar plexus have been told that they're dramatic and too emotional, but that is just how you're operated. You're designed to operate. It can be very uncomfortable for those of us that have open centers there, because again, where we have openness, we are taking in the energy of others. I know this from personal experience. My child has a defined solar plexus. I clearly have an open solar plexus, and that has been one of my greatest learning curves, is to navigate those emotional spikes that he has and not taking them on as my own. But it is here to teach us that emotions are fine and that we all have to ride those emotions, right? Moving on up, this is our ego center or will center. This is a motor center. This is the smallest center. As you can tell, it has less gates that can be activated. It said 20% of the population has a defined will center. I think that number has changed recently because I have encountered many defined will centers, particularly in children. If you have a child that has a defined will center and you say have an open will center, your child will out willpower you every time. This is where you have to get creative in communicating with your children, because the I said so is not going to work. It's not going to work. And so learning that can be very helpful in navigating power struggles and helping you to diffuse some of those power struggles. Next, we have the G center. This is an identity center. This is a direction center, actually is what it's called. But this is where your identity and purpose is held. If your child has a defined one, then they came in here feeling like they know what they're here to do, right? They are on a mission, and they will show up consistently in how they externally express themselves with every person that they encounter. Now, if your child has an open G center, they're considered the chameleons. They may be outgoing around some friends and very introverted around others. They may like certain things around particular friends and not like them around others. This is not them being wishy-washy. This is truly how they're designed to be. They're taking in the world and mirroring it back to the people around them. Because where we have openness is not only where we're absorbing, we're also mirroring back, right? We're mirroring back what we see in the other person. Okay, now we're moving to the throat center. This is a manifestation center and where we are here to communicate. Okay, everything reaches to it. If you have a connection to the throat and it's defined by a motor center, you're either a manifesting generator or a manifester, depending on if you have that sacral defined. If your ajna is connected to the throat but no other motor centers are, you could possibly be a projector. This is a projected center. Okay, this is where we communicate from. What that means is, even if you're not a projector, it's like you're not here to communicate unless you're asked, because it can be received in a poor manner. This is just where the energy comes from. As you can see, mine is undefined, and so I am here to respond to people when they ask me questions. I feel very unheard when I try to communicate when no one is asked me for my opinion or asked me to talk. So you may notice if your child has an open one, they may sit and be very quiet until they're ready to talk, because those with open throats are here to communicate things that are important, and so they are here to reflect back what needs to be heard by the other person. If your child has a defined throat, they probably talk a lot because they have consistent access to this. A lot of people that have defined throats, children that have defined throats, have been told they're loud, they talk too much, and it's really not their fault. They have consistent access to this energy. Moving on up, we got the Ajna Center. This is another awareness center. It's associated with the third eye in your chakra system. This is where ideas and beliefs are held. Okay, if your child has a defined, they're going to be opinionated. They're going to have an opinion about everything and an idea about everything. If it is undefined, they are not here to have a set belief system and a set opinion, truly being open-minded and being able to see all sides. So it's really important for parents that have children that have open to be aware of what your child is taking in, because they're more susceptible to external influences than those that have defined ajnas. Last in our center, but not least, is another pressure center located in the head, called the head center. It's associated with the crown chakra. This is where we take in information from our external environment. If it is open, your child is walking around just absorbing everything, just taking it all in, right? Every idea, every thought. This can be associated with telecommunication, just taking all kinds of things in. If it's defined, they're their own muse. They are not as susceptible to their environment, right? They can be creative without having to be inspired by someone or waiting for the timing. This is something that they can just naturally create without having to wait. All right. Now, once you move from the centers, we move down to the gates and channels. Like I said, this is not a detailed going into all the things. This is just giving you vocabulary and ideas of what you're looking at when you pull your design chart. The goal here is to empower you with the information so that you can do with it what you want and not feel lost or like you have to hire me to translate it if you want to figure it out yourself. So the gates, as I said, are where the planets were in the sky. So if you look here, you have an open gate or an undefined gate, like 17 here. That means you don't have, the child doesn't have consistent access to that. You don't have consistent access to that if you don't have it defined in your chart. Where you have a defined gate like 63 here, this is where you have consistent access because it is colored in. And then the defined channel, where it takes two gates and connects them together to create a channel, which then creates defined centers. This is where you have your energy has an easy flow of energy from one center to the next, right? When you have what's called hanging gates, which is like the 63, where it's reaching for the 4, that means that you're energetically searching outside of yourself to find that 4 to help that energy move easier. So a lot of times you can get stuck if you don't have that that complete channel. So that concludes this small video on the parts of the Human Design Bodygraph. I hope that you find it helpful. Feel free to reference it at any time. But I do think you'll find it helpful as we navigate the transits of this coming year and also navigating and understanding your child's chart. Always feel free to reach out at moonienergetics.com or on Instagram at energetic_parenting. For more details, DM me, set up a reading, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.